All battle royales have the same main objective: be the last one standing. Though many of those games follow a similar concept using firearms, none have taken the genre in this direction before. While the game is still young, it's growing more than ever, with a competitive scene already on the horizon, being sponsored by the likes of Durex? This is a game that puts focus and attention on movement and reaction time, and gives you tons of different styles of how you want to play. This is Naraka Bladepoint. Naraka Bladepoint is a third-person battle royale game developed by 24 Entertainment in China. The game's selling point is being a new take on the battle royale genre. Yeah, we know, you've heard that one before. Just stay with us. Unlike other BRs, which almost exclusively feature ranged battles with guns or magic or bows and arrows, Naraka Bladepoint is all about getting up close and personal and comboing the hell out of opponents. The combat, which is rooted in Chinese martial arts and was heavily inspired by Chinese wuxia films like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and House of Flying Daggers, is theatrical and satisfying. The game features tons of weapons, each of which change the way you fight and interact with enemies. Bladepoint has often been compared to Guns the Duel, for its focus on precise combos and fast-paced action. The combat breaks down into a simple yet intricate rock-paper-scissors between light attacks, focus attacks, and parries, combined with character-specific moves, 2 regular abilities and an ultimate, as well as differing frame data for each weapon and attack. The combat gets really deep, really fast, and a good player who knows what they're doing can easily 1v3 less experienced opponents. Think about starting a sword fight with your opponent, and then they try to run away. How are you going to catch them when all you have is a sword? Well, Bladepoint also has ranged weapons. Ranged weapons are secondary to the melee combat, meant for poking at mid-range and finishing off fleeing opponents rather than one-shotting enemies from across the map. Whether finishing off injured enemies or kiting opponents to try and get them to chase you, Bladepoint melds melee and ranged combat with one of its most satisfying mechanics: movement. Typically, in open-world battle royales, traversing the map can feel slow and monotonous. PUBG has, on more than one occasion, been referred to as a running simulator. In Bladepoint, you can climb on pretty much everything, free run like it's Assassin's Creed, and grapple from treetop to treetop like Spider-Man or Rico Rodriguez from Just Cause. Speaking of the grapple, it's one of the most fun parts of the game, as you can use it to maneuver in combat, escape sticky situations, and even latch directly onto enemies to close the gap. The combination of deep melee combat, precise ranged weapons, and virtually limitless movement options makes fighting in Bladepoint really, really satisfying. When the game first released, things were going well. They did the classic, pay a bunch of streamers to try the game and drum up hype, and had Soda Poppin' showing off the game's customization.
What have you done?
While Shroud, Lyric, and Summit 1G ripped trios for a full day on launch.
No! Come on, bro!
The highly detailed character model came with some mature-rated fan service, which is where you could argue the company has made most of its profits off the game. However, a big government law in China would force 24 Entertainment to make changes to some of their characters' appearances, but we'll get into that later. The game also had a diverse cast of characters a la Apex Legends. For example, Viper is a character that has lots of crowd control and can knock back multiple opponents to prevent getting comboed, while Kurumi, more of a support character, can heal herself and teammates when things get bad. You can even turn into a giant four-armed monster and simply bludgeon your enemies to death. The game is visually gorgeous, with an aesthetic reminiscent of MMORPGs, and there are a ton of customization options for players to use. However, unlike the Apex Legends launch, Bladepoint isn't free to play, and as we've discussed in previous videos, making your battle royale available to everyone is a huge indicator of whether it'll stick around or not. On top of this, Bladepoint's focus on tight, precise combat and frame-dependent follow-ups means that gameplay can easily be disrupted by one frustrating thing: server issues. When you're flying through the air trying to pinpoint your enemy, nothing will have you throwing your mouse through the wall faster than a lag spike or rubber band that drops the combo and gets you killed. For all its tight movement and deep, rewarding combat, if you can't partake in it without being disrupted by a poor connection, what's the point? The game also has an insane skill curve. For the first few hours after you buy the game, all of your matches are filled with bots that really don't put up any sort of fight. But as soon as you start to encounter other players, you're in for a rude awakening. Animation cancelling, team combos, these are things that you don't just learn through a tutorial or playing against bots. And getting better playered over and over is incredibly frustrating, especially in a battle royale where you have to start from scratch every time you die. These factors, combined with an already saturated and fatigued market for battle royale games, meant that Naraka Bladepoint didn't quite catch on in North America the way you might expect. After an incredibly successful few weeks as one of the most played games on Steam, the player count began to drop, with many proclaiming the game dead. Fortunately, those would-be morticians might have called the death time a little bit prematurely. In terms of average player count, Naraka Bladepoint remains within the top 100, and in terms of peak daily player count, it often breaks into the top 10. By all accounts, the game is alive and thriving, and nowhere is that more apparent than in China. By the end of 2021, the game had sold more than 6 million copies in China alone and has developed quite the competitive scene. In January of 2022, the first Naraka Bladepoint World Championships took place, sponsored by the likes of Philips and Durex. With more than 1.2 million USD on the line, and teams from China, Singapore, Japan, and Vietnam represented, the event was a huge success, and Bladepoint's competitive scene seems to be growing exponentially. The Naraka Bladepoint Pro League, sponsored by NetEase, the game's publisher, is a biannual competitive circuit that features a yearly prize pool of 5.2 million yuan, about 800,000 USD. It features several tournaments, including the Koi Cup, the Pro League Finals, and the World Championship, and has rosters sponsored by teams like Wolves, Alliance, and many others. So while the game is struggling on platforms like Twitch here in the West, it's still thriving overseas. However, the game took a huge publicity hit quite recently. Remember the fan service we talked about earlier? Well, 24 Entertainment had to change some of their skins due to Chinese media censorship laws implemented in 2021. They made changes to character models and removed some in-game physics that were banned under the new laws. Though in the process, they were able to lower their game's age rating from mature to PEGI 12, the changes left a lot of fans really angry. They joined forces and review bombed the game. Although none of this actually changes the gameplay of Naraka Bladepoint, this quick little tidbit might explain why the game's rating has gone down in the past few months. But regardless, if you're worried that you've missed the boat to try the game, think again. Naraka Bladepoint still has a decent player base in North America and is 100% worth trying out if you've been wanting to try a new kind of battle royale. If the game can earn a second life, it might be possible for the esports scene to start growing here and make for a true world championship sometime down the line. Thanks for watching. What are your thoughts on Naraka Bladepoint? Is the gameplay as fun as people say it is? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, and shout out to B, Cloud, QB, Foxy, Kiaostick, Pachanas, Shampoo, Spartacus, and Yashichi for being platinum supporters. And an extra special shout out to Marco for being our diamond supporter. Happy New Year, guys! Here's to a great 2023. If you want to talk to us, check out our Discord. If you want to support our channel and get info on unreleased videos, check out our Patreon. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Jonah. Thanks for watching.